Okay, so hey everybody, welcome back to this week of MTG Militia Madness. What I got for you here is Wilson Refined GrizzlyAgent of the Shadow Thieves deck tech. So this looks a little bit weird at first, but like, oh yeah, you're playing green-black, like maybe you're playing something interesting, like weird, like combo-y. It's like, no, this is going to be a control deck. Well, and now you're like, well, Wilson and Agent of the Shadow Thieves has nothing to do with control. Well, what it does is immediately be a hard-to-deal-with win con. So Wilson here, he's a 2-mana 2/2 bear stats. Uncounterable, so against the blue decks, gonna sneak through very easily like that. Then Vigilance, Reach, Trample, so that means he can easily be left back on blockers, easily go over stuff. Very nice and synergistic there. Downside is he's a 2/2. So that's one of the reasons why we have Agent of the Shadow Thieves here. What it does is it gives Wilson +1/+1 in Death Touch and Indestructible whenever he attacks, notably a +1/+1 counter. So he'll constantly be scaling up, getting bigger, and always being ready to be back on the block to like gum up the board of any small stuff, which is very nice, very useful, good utility on that. And you'll see some of that in some of the deck building decisions that I've made. But I guess we'll just start on like an easy package, which you'll see with like a Protect the King kind of strategy, which is I got some protection spells for him. We got from left to right from here, Gaia's Gift, probably kind of the worst one, but not too bad, which is 2 mana, gives +1/+1, Reach, Trample, Hexproof. Notably, we already have 2 of those, so that doesn't matter. Oh, and Indestructible. But so +1/+1 counter, Hexproof, Indestructible. Just very good overall, meaning that I'll make my Wilson permanently a little bigger, and the Indestructible means that like if they had, say, like a deal 3 to everything somehow, it won't die to that even if it had no buffs on already, which is very nice. Well, like say something like, I'm going to swap over to the far right one, which will now be over here, which is Snakeskin Veil. Same effect, effectively, just missing out on the Indestructible. But it's 1 mana cheaper, which helps a lot. And I notably went for like nothing like Ranger's Guile, because those don't give permanent buffs, and I want to have Wilson be a scaling threat that'll make sure that if it is going through like fairly unchecked, the game will end pretty fast, which helps my control decks plan a bit. It means I'm not as soft to like people just ignoring me for a second while I sit here with a bunch of removal spells in my hand. Then, next one we have here, Vine of the Vastwood. Can't be targeted by anything my opponent controls. And then if I kick it, an extra +4/+4, which when I show you my removal suite will make a little bit more sense, but also just helps kill people if I need it. And lastly, this one gives no potential extra power or toughness, but Tameo Safekeeping says target permanent you control gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn, and you gain 2 life. This is just kind of nice because it also says that indestructible clause, so Fiery Cannonade or something, if I play Wilson out my 3 mana, definitely won't kill it as long as I have the safekeeping up, which is very, very relevant because you see a lot of Fiery Cannonade and the other one that does the same thing, which I can't remember the name of, and gaining 2 life, which is helping against aggro decks. And then next I'll do my removal because this is a controlling deck from what I said. So we got Chandra's Edict, Classic, Edict Effect, Flashback for 7 if I get into the mid to late game. So good stuff with that. Snuff Out, Classic, free kill spell. I got a lot of swamps in here for it. Cast Down, Go for the Throat. Destroy anything that's not legendary. Destroy anything that's not artifact. The most like evergreen removal spells in the format in black, effectively. Then we got a suite of kind of weird green removal. We got Horrific Assault, which is a 1 mana punch, which is nice on rate. And then a little weird effect is if I control an Eldrazi, I can gain 3 life, which you'll see that I do have some Eldrazi makers later. It's not like a big plus of the effect, but it's just punches, which are nice with Wilson because Agent of the Shadow Thieves gives Death Touch. So any punch spell can kill any size creature, as long as I have attacked this turn, which is free because he has Indestructible. The other extra combo that I forgot to mention is Trample plus Death Touch. Means I only have to ever deal 1 creature and trample over for the rest. So in like late games against like board stally stuff, their blocks aren't even going to save them much damage no matter what, which is very, very cool. Then here's my other 2 removal spells, which are Ram Through, or sorry, I skipped over Bushwhack, but I'll get back to that then. Ram Through and Master's Rebuke. These are effectively the same card, which is a 2 mana instant speed punch, except that Ram Through has this nice little extra ability that says if the creature had trample, any excess punched right over. So if I have Wilson attack with Shadow Thieves and they have a 3/3 out, they probably didn't want to block. So now I can Ram Through, deal 3 damage to it, or we'll deal 1 damage to it and trample over for an extra 2 with the Ram Through. So just a nice way to get some extra damage and eke through and make sure the games don't go so long that I completely run out of spells. Then we got Bushwhack here, which is a actual fight spell, not a punch like the other. So a little weaker if I don't have the ability to have Wilson be indestructible. But it also has this alternate clause of I can just basic land cycle it out, which I've been prioritizing fairly heavily, especially since this is a more controlling deck. I'll say now I have 19 lands in this, so I put in a total of 4 of land cyclers to make sure I'm hitting land drops most turns. Now, moving on from that, removal package, what we got here is going to be... Yeah, where did I actually put the rest of these cards? I sat them over further away than I expected. Sorry about that. Cool. We have the artifact package, which is Blood Fountain, classic, makes multiple artifacts, and able to get stuff back from some of the creatures back from my graveyard, which you'll see. I'm not running too many, but just like, it's nice value to have artifacts on the field, and I can sack it to what every black deck that runs artifacts runs, which is actually like probably the primary use case of it. Then we got Tithing Blade, an addition to the removal spell suite that also can be sacked to the artifact package of draw spells. Ichor Wellspring, classic, will be able to draw 3 and also draw its initial one when it comes in. Limbus, draw this one when it comes in, can be sacked to draw and nicely shuffles back into your deck. Also good against aggro decks because it's going to gain you some life. Mephitic Draught, kind of the opposite, but it's another Ichor Wellspring that it just hurts you. Then we got Heaped Harvest, which is a little bit weirder. It's kind of like these, but instead of drawing a card, it searches for land, so it helps that make me have my mana to play a removal spell, still hold up protection for my commander, which is very useful. Also, another note of it has the ability to help me gain 3 life because of the food, which can help save me from any like weird interactions in the middle late game of like possibly just getting punched in the face to death. Then we got the last 2 artifacts, which are Grim Bauble, another small removal, nicely sackable, just kind of good value. And Nihil Spellbomb, which looks a little bit weird mainboard, but I was trying to get like a critical mass of about like 8 non-land artifacts in the deck, and Nihil felt like a good like middle ground place to play a safe artifact that, at worst, I side out if it's doing nothing, but at this point I can just nicely cycle it for 2 mana and deal with any incidental graveyard stuff in the main deck. Which, especially as a control deck, people might not be expecting, it might give me a little bit of an edge. Then the kind of unsaid part of obvious bit of that, Deadly Dispute, Reckoner's Bargain, Eviscerator's Insight, Fanatical Offering. 4 things that turn those all into nice nice divinations for cheaper. Because they already have their effects, so it doesn't matter that you're sacking off a second card. They already did what they needed to do. Then we got what I'll call the Wilson Pump package, which we got Eternal Thirst, which is +1/+1 lifelink. Or sorry, just lifelink. And then whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, +1/+1 counter. So it means that I can gain life back against aggressive decks with my Wilson. And then also as it kills stuff, gets him a little bit bigger, so I'm not like... So I'm able to easily like race boards if I need to. Especially with the Vigilance, like that can get out of hand very quickly, especially against like red decks. If I get him out of bolt range, it can be dominant very soon. The same kind of thing goes for unexpected things, just instead of being an enchantment that sits around giving a lifelink, it gives a lifelink counter, which could potentially be a little bit more versatile, but it doesn't scale up. It's only 1 +1/+1 counter. But the instant speed bit of it too can be nice, because say if I have a 3/3 Wilson, they can pay the ward cost and then I can bump it up to a 4/4. Which you'll see it in a minute, because I'll actually take a card from a different package I have here, which was just value cards, and put it with the pump package, because that is actually kind of why it's here, which is Bannerhide Crew Shock. Which, it's a nice value creature, can scavenge in late game and like up my Wilson more, but also the 2 mana Reinforce to possibly deal with any damage dealing removal as a surprise. It's a nice effect. Then we got Nyxborn Hydra. Late game can be a big creature itself, but also it's just this nice kind of thing as like, if they're trying hard to take out my commander, now when it dies, boom, immediate threat. So it can help scare people and just end game sooner. Notably, the reach and trample on Wilson doesn't matter, but it's kind of like an Umbra armor here, which we got with Snake Umbra. 3 mana, +1/+1. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to an opponent, or sorry, just deals damage to an opponent. So notably, if I use my Ram Through, could also get a draw for that. So very nice that it just helps me stay in the game with draws if I'm hitting in, and it also gives Wilson effectively indestructible for a set, which is very good. Notably, I did not put Spider Umbra in here. It was in earlier drafts. To be honest, I couldn't find one because mine got lost in the mail because of weather. But I was also considering it as like, Spider Umbra is just +1/+1 and effectively indestructible. It's not doing much, so I don't think I actually lose much by taking it out. And the card I put in explicitly for it, instead of it, was Master's Rebuke, which is just another removal spell, which just getting to a higher critical mass removal spells, I think I do feel better about than having Spider Umbra in the deck. And then moving on, we'll just get like my little bit of stay in the game, like revitalize and search for stuff package, which is level and rumble, just kind of too good to not put anything. Helps find stuff you need in your deck. Notably also makes now Eldrazi for horrific assault. So just a way to like make that gain 3 life, which is just an incidentally good card that you're not actually forcing in for that synergy. Then Pulse of Marasa, a nice way to gain some life, get like possibly a Land Cycler back out of my graveyard, possibly like Evolution Witness out to get any permanent back out, and also just gain 6. It's just a nice way to like keep myself in the game if I'm on the back foot. A lot of times you see it in the sideboard, but I think it's just like has a good versatility in what is a full control deck. And then Evolution Witness. Nice way to get permanents back out of my yard. So if I have like cycled a land, Eichler, or got rid of a Heaped Harvest or an artifact, I can get those all back very easily with Evolution Witness. Awkwardly enough, Pulse Marasa can't get the artifacts back, but that's not too bad because there are so many other targets. Then what I'll show next is just, because I mentioned them a couple times, the Land Cyclers. We got Generous Int, Troll of Khazad-dûm. I just have a good amount of ways to like synergize with them coming back, and like I'm a controlling deck, so at worst they can come actually down in the late game, and they make my land count effectively higher, which is very good. And I do think there is like weight to them not being lands because I have ways to interact with my graveyard just a little bit, and we might see something with that, but I just enjoy having both Land Cyclers if there's no real reason not to. Then we've got my creature package, which will be a bunch of stuff, but yeah. These are just like value creatures that didn't really fit into any other category initially, then just being good on curve and doing their stuff, which I'll actually organize these a little better. We got Sakura Tri-Belter. This thing is just here to effectively be a Fog 1 creature, get a land into play so I can become the person who's ahead on lands. Which, the nice thing about that is meaning like, okay, I can then, after a Sakura Tri-Belter turn, more easily leave up a Protect Wilson and a removal spell without taxing myself as much. So I'm not like a ramp deck, I just want to have the option to be a little ahead, and also, it's at worst kind of a fog. Then we got Thorn of the Black Rose, which you may notice I don't have the Emissary of Trust in here. Or, yeah. Whatever, Trust, because Emissary of Trust is Entourage of Trust. That's it. I knew Emissary of Trust was Leovold's title, and that's why I was like, yeah. But I don't have them in the main deck because they're 5 mana, which is going to be a little bit more taxing, especially against aggressive decks. It'll be harder to stabilize, and I don't think I can afford that most of the time. And so Thorn of the Black Rose just being here as a, hey, definitely don't attack into me, your creature will trade at worst, and coming down on 4, possibly 5, and leaving up like a Snakeskin Veil is something that I think is a very good idea. Then we got Sagu Wildling. Sagu Wildling is just such a free card most of the time. Like, it's an extra land cycler, and then it can come down and like help stabilize you late game and be just a flying body in green, which you don't see much. So it's just actually just kind of nice value across the board, especially because I have pump spells and stuff like that. Like, attacking for like 7 in the air because I have Vines of Vastwood late game, pretty scary. And then the last 2 are just 2 value creatures, which I put in as kind of filler, which I like because I have this Fanatical Offering package. They're Eldrazi Repurposer, which once again also synergizes with Horrific Assault, and Jewel Thief. They make their little tokens that can make mana, which can once again make my mana less taxed if I want to kill something and protect. But also I can sack the token to my like Fanatical Offering of Eviscerator's Insight package if I have not hit anything better by the turns these come down on. And I think just having that critical mass is very helpful. And that should be it for the main deck except for the land, so I'll slide everything over to the side. I will leave these up here and then tell you about the lands. Cool. So I guess I'll start with basics because they're what I picked up first. I got 5 swamps and 6 forests. If you saw before, I do have just like a lot of like green creatures and stuff like that there, and as long as I have ways to search up like 1 to 2 black mana, I should be able to do as much as I need at most times. So I am running a little bit more forest heavy because of that, in addition to the fact that I have Gingerbread Cabin here to be an extra artifact to sacrifice, and additionally stabilize against really aggressive decks is another way to make a food. And then Tree of Tales here, which is for just having extra artifact if I have too many lands and need one to stack to my sacrifice package. Same for Vault of Whispers. And in the dual land category, we got Drossforge Bridge for sacking artifacts too. Then next, I got both of my dual type lands. So Swamp Forest, because I have Gingerbread Cabin, I want to make sure I have that. But I also have Snuff Out, so I want to make sure I have swamps early, and also just, you saw I'm relatively 50-50 on mana, so just making sure I have fixing no matter which like land I end up heavier on is very good. And Golgari Rot Farm is my last fixing land there, except for one more that we'll see in a second. But Golgari Rot Farm is nice because I'm maybe a little light on lands for a control deck, but it means that I will be able to get another land drop no matter what if I play it on something, so that's just good value. And it also synergizes a little bit with this Ash Barrens, which I have, so if I need to, I can cycle out to thin my deck out, because it can just be nice to make sure that I get colored mana if I need it. But if I have, like, let's say, like, Woodland Chasm into Forest, I can just play it on turn 3 and just get a normal amount of... It's just going to tap for all my colorless costs in the future. So it's nice, flexible, can thin out my deck and make sure that I'm hitting, like, removal more rather than, like, running into sequences of lands. And yeah, that's it for the mana base. And we'll be moving on to the sideboard. My sideboard has a couple like sets of stuff, so I'll just start with the basic, easy Graveyard Ante, which also has a little bit of this, but Heritage Reclamation, barely not Graveyard Ante. Got Tormod's Crypt, Relic of Progenitus, because I only have like 2 cards that use my own graveyard, so I can go a little less hard on it, or just be cognizant of like when I have stuff that I don't want to get rid of with Relic of Progenitus. But generally, if I'm boarding it in, the graveyards are much, much more valuable to my opponent, so I'm not going to feel that bad about it. Then, next, we got what I'll say is just like additional removal for decks that are much creature heavy. So we got Extracted Confession, another Edict, but can also make sure to target the biggest creature they have. Then we got Curse and Marauder, another Edict, but this one specifically can't hit tokens, so if they have like a Murmuring Mystic on the board, it'll always kill the Murmuring Mystic, so it's some nice value there. Then we got some flexible removal, so Disfigure and Doomblade. Doomblade I'll bring in against basically any non-black deck because it just becomes another cast down. Honestly, I could see some people even main decking this in some points, but I feel like just it could be a little too awkward to be that percentage point of game 1 of like, oh yeah, you play against a black X deck and 90% of their creatures are black or something like that, and then you don't want to like lose that value. But otherwise, I think it's surprisingly good compared to like where I've been thinking about it in the past, because I've kind of written it off. Then we got Anti-aggro in Weather the Storm. Here, we're just going to be gaining a bunch of life. And then got, oh yeah, another extra removal spell with Lignify, good for taking out commanders specifically, so that kind of thing is just very valuable. It is a little bit awkward that it's an enchantment removal, and we have an enchantment in the command zone, so it could kind of just take some flack, especially with like the artifact package. Like, it is definitely a little bit more easy to hit when you're already wanting to bring some stuff in, but I still don't think it's that bad to just be another critical mass spell. Then we got Arms of Hadar for go wide aggro, can easily wipe anything 2 power or less, which is a good relevant number. I probably would also have Suffocating Fumes in here, but I literally couldn't find one. I don't know. I feel like I probably had one in a deck before, so whoops, couldn't find it in my house. But that's fine. Then we got Entourage of Tress, the other Monarch creature. It's just going to be good here against like more hard control decks. So if I get it through, I'm just going to be able to like draw a bunch, and out-tempo them because they're not going to be attacking me too much back. And hopefully they're going to have to take out Wilson anyway when this comes down. So if they do, they're spending a lot of mana on that and not a lot of mana of coming back to get the Monarch. Then we got Duress and Mesmeric Fiend to help reinforce that, take out stuff for my opponent that could actually like more easily like diffuse my kind of combo, my nice little Voltron-y boy that doesn't take as much effort as like a full Voltron. And then, lastly, I got my Anti-Artifact Enchantment, which is why I probably should have brought it out a little earlier, but we got full Deglamour, Heritage Reclamation, be 2 naturalized style effects. Deglamour has the nice effect of it can get rid of stuff that's indestructible, so like artifact lands, etc., or stuff that's worse shuffled into the deck than it is in the graveyard, like maybe like Molten Gatekeeper, that kind of like idea. And then Heritage Reclamation just has the nice extra effect of also possibly being an anti-graveyard that can cycle itself away, and it's like, even if it didn't have to be anti-graveyard, it drew me a card. Cool. Tranquility, just nice here against way too like heavily indexed on enchantment stuff, so Boggles, etc. It's kind of just a nice filler slot, and hopefully it'll do its work at some point, but we've not really had the chance of bringing in one of these against Boggles on the channel yet. But yeah, that's it for my sideboard for Wilson, the Shadow Thief. He's going to get in there, steal some stuff, and hopefully steal your hearts and minds, I guess, if you care about that. Those who know that's a Persona reference, that's fun. But yeah, that's it for my deck tech this week. And yeah, make sure to do the like, share, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And we'll see you in the gameplay pretty soon. Maybe a little later than usual, but pretty soon.